This video is on boasting, specifically not boasting. The first subsection is don't boast or bad things happen. Psalm 12 verse 3 says don't have a boastful tongue. It says, may the Lord cut off all flattering lips and every boastful tongue that says, we will triumph with our tongues, we own our lips, who is our master? The Lord will cut off every boastful tongue. Psalm 12 verse 4 says don't say boastfully, we will triumph with our tongues, we own our lips, who is our master? It's the same verse as before. Romans chapter 11 verse 18 says, do not boast over those branches that have been broken off where you have been grafted in. It says, if some of the branches have been broken off, and you, though a wild olive shoot, have been grafted in among the others, and now share in the nurturing sap from the olive root, do not boast over those branches. If you do, consider this, you do not support the root, but the root supports you. James chapter 3 verse 5 says, don't make great boasts with your tongue. It says, likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boasts. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. 2 Peter chapter 2 verse 18 says, don't mouth boastful words. It says, blackest darkness is reserved for them, for they mouth empty, boastful words. Don't have blackest darkness be reserved for you. It cannot be by not mouthing empty, boastful words. In part. Don't boast about yourself is the next verse. It's Jude chapter 1 verse 16. It says, blackest darkness has been reserved for them forever. They boast about themselves. Don't have blackest darkness be reserved for you forever. Don't boast about yourself. Revelation chapter 18 verse 7 says, don't in your heart boast, I sit as queen, I am not a widow, and I will never mourn. The verse says, give her as much torture and grief as the glory and luxury she gave herself. In her heart she boasts, I sit as queen, I am not a widow, and I will never mourn. Therefore in one day her plagues will overtake her, death, mourning, and famine. She will be consumed by fire, for mighty is the Lord God, who judges her. The next subsection is don't boast because bad people do it. Exodus chapter 15 verse 9 says don't boast. This is a song Moses and the Israelites sang to God. They say, the enemy boasted, I will pursue, I will overtake them, I will divide the spoils, I will gorge myself on them, I will draw my sword into my hand, will destroy them. But you blew with your breath, and the sea covered them. Jeremiah chapter 48 verse 29 says don't boast. It says about Moab, many bad things happen. It says, I know her insolence, but it is futile, declares the Lord, and her boasts accomplish nothing. Daniel chapter 7 verse 8 says, don't speak boastfully. Daniel says, while I was thinking about the horns, there before me was another horn, a little one, which came up among them, and 3 of the first horns were uprooted before it. This horn had eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth that spoke boastfully. Don't speak boastfully. Daniel chapter 7 verse 11 says, don't have boastful words. It says, then I continued to watch because of the boastful words the horn was speaking. These horns are not good things in David's visions. Don't be like them. Daniel chapter 7 verse 20 says, don't speak boastfully. It says, I also wanted to know about the 10 horns on its head, and about the other horn that came up, before which 3 of them fell, the horn that looked more imposing than the others, and that had eyes and a mouth that spoke boastfully. Don't speak boastfully. Acts chapter 8 verse 9 says, don't boast that you are someone great. It says, now for some time a man named Simon had practiced sorcery in the city and amazed all the people of Samaria. He boasted that he was someone great. This same Simon the sorcerer was later called evil by and a child of the devil by Paul. 2 Timothy chapter 3 verse 2 says don't be boastful. It says, but mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. People will be boastful, who, as far as the faith is concerned, are rejected. 1 John chapter 2 verse 15 says, don't boast of what you have. It says, for everything in the world, the cravings of sinful man, the boasting of what he has, comes not from the Father, but from the world. The world and its desires pass away. 1 John chapter 2, verse 15 says, don't boast of what you do. It says, for everything in the world, the cravings of sinful man, the boasting of what he does, comes not from the Father, but from the world. The world and its desires pass away. The next subsection is, it's a bad character trait to have. Boasting. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 4 says, don't boast. It says, love does not boast. James chapter 3, verse 14 says, don't boast about your selfish ambition if you have it. It says, but if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast about it or deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come down from heaven, but is earthly, unspiritual, of the devil. If you harbor selfish ambition in your hearts, that comes from the devil. It's unspiritual, it's earthly. That's incredible. James chapter 3, verse 14 says, don't boast about your bitter envy if you have it. Again, it says, but if you harbor bitter envy in your hearts, do not boast about it or deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come down from heaven, but is earthly and spiritual, of the devil. Don't have bitter envy. Don't have selfish ambition. James chapter 4, verse 16 says, don't boast. It says, instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast and brag. All such boasting is evil. The next subsection is other things. It's similar to boasting, it's bragging. James chapter 4, verse 16 again, it says, don't brag. Instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast and brag. All such boasting is evil.